Okay, hello, welcome back everyone. Today for me is somewhere around day 4, something like that. We skipped a couple days in there. Met Andre, who's going to be our PA. I forgot to record that, but we did a couple test setups with different lighting conditions, got all our gear working and set up.
And this Sunday, we're setting up at my grandma's house. So we're taking all the equipment, we're setting up a demo interview and testing everything out.
We're going to time ourselves.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Setup and breakdown, because so many of these interviews that we're going to for this new project, we're, on a time limit, on a time crunch. So we have to go and get the interview, and we have so much equipment, all the lighting equipment. We're setting up 2 cameras. It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah. All right. So first, I assume people watching this probably know who I am, depending on where it's posted, or at least one of us. So I want to start out with an introduction of who you are, for those who don't know. Ashton Gleckman. 2020? 20. So tell us, I think it's fair to say that you're mainly a composer. Is that fair to say?
Well, film and music for me have become so meshed in my life. So I started playing music when I was 7. I started writing music for films when I was 13. Worked on my first documentary when I was 14. And when I was actually 16, I discovered film as an art form and actually creating films. And I started putting together all these little short films with my friends in town here in Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm. Me included.
You included. Yeah. And so we did tons of these small little short films. We would choose these abandoned locations where we
no
would
permission.
Go. Right. And we would come up with these stories and sneak in and shoot these short films. And finally, when I was 18, I made the decision to go into documentary filmmaking, because I've always loved, Ken Burns and Werner Herzog and the amazing ability that documentaries have to take you into these stories and introduce us to these characters that we never would have met. These people on islands that live completely differently to the way that we live. You would never know they're there unless some filmmaker went in there and started shooting it. Mm-hmm. And so that for me was like the series, this sense of adventure, And so my first film was We Shall Not Die Now, where I set out to try to make a film about the Holocaust and sort of bring audiences through it.
Starting light.
Right. Well,
that was a joke.
Yeah, I mean, what I wanted to do was bring audiences through the Holocaust from the beginning to the end of it, and introduce them to survivors, but also show them the lens of liberators and also the various people that the survivors have affected. So, for example, we interviewed one of the sons of a survivor. So that, for me, was just a life-changing project, getting the chance to actually go to Poland. And then the second film is actually coming out next month, and that's just a more intimate sort of film, a lot lighthearted, more lighthearted than the first one. And then we're going into this third one.
Yeah, so let's get right into it. I haven't revealed yet on my little vlog thing what we're actually doing, but tell us, what is this project?
So I'm so incredibly excited for this, because I've been researching it and sort of diving into it for like 8 months now. And it's a documentary series called Kennedy, which is 6 hours long. It's one episode. Each episode is 1 hour long, and there's 6 episodes. But it takes us into the life and legacy of John F. Kennedy. And so much that has been made about Kennedy has been about his death, the way that he died. Conspiracy theories about whether it was the mob, or whether it was Cuba, or whether it was Russia. And everybody remembers where they were when Kennedy was killed on November 22nd, 1963. But for me, what I'm really interested in is diving into his life. The evolution of how he came from this really sort of privileged upbringing in Brookline, Massachusetts. He went into the Second World War. He's fighting in the Pacific theater of the Second World War. He comes back home, this sort of war hero, having saved this man's life in the Pacific, and he goes into politics. And what I'm looking to do in the series is sort of follow his ascension through the Congress, the Senate, eventually his presidential run, and so many of those huge events in his presidency, including the Bay of Pigs and the Cuban Missile Crisis, going into those. And that for me is what I'm really excited to do on this one.
So yeah, that's the project. We're doing a documentary about Kennedy. We'll get into more of that in later videos. But I wanted this video to be all about what we're going to be doing, where we're going to be going, who we're going to be talking to. So Ashton, we're going to be on the road with each other in one car or a plane in some way for about 2.5 months.
Right. And I mean, the thing that I've been thinking about is when John F. Kennedy, known by his friends and family as Jack, was on these huge campaign trails. When he was running for the Senate or for the presidency, he was traveling all over the place, from Tennessee to wherever, Wyoming, every single one of the 50 states. So what I'm thinking about when we're doing this adventure is we're essentially going on a Kennedy-esque sort of journey all throughout the United States, California, Texas, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts. So it'll be busy, but it'll also be insanely fun, you know.
So we've got a bit of a crude map here.
Yeah.
You want to just hold that up?
Right. So this sort of shows, you know, how we'll be coming in from Indiana and we'll be traveling over to Boston. We start in Springfield, Massachusetts.
I'm gonna have to hold it a little closer.
Right. And then we go, you know, to Rhode Island, Connecticut. And then from there we go to New York City, Washington, D.C., Charlottesville. And then after that we come back home and we have further trips in Chicago, Houston, Dallas, and other places.
So this is all just the driving portion. That's like about the first half of the trip, really.
Yeah.
So that's where we're going.
Yeah.
And then what I'm excited about is our trip. You know, I think we average maybe about 1 interview a day, 2 sometimes.
Well, in Washington, D.C., every single day is 2 interviews a day.
Okay.
And each interview approximately is like 3 hours because you have to have the time setting up and then actually the interview and then breaking down. But for example, in Boston, we only have 1 interview a day. D.C., we have 2 a day. There might be a few instances in this shoot where we have 3 a day, which in that case, we'll want to hit the hay and get a good night's rest before
by the bay. I just may.
Yeah. There you go.
That was a Happy Gilmore reference. Okay. So that's where we're going. Can you tell us all about the notable people we're going to be talking to?
Well, you'll sort of discover that on the journey. But we have some really, really cool people. Everyone from Kennedy family members like Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, who is Robert F. Kennedy's daughter. We have her involved. We have Juliet Sorensen, who is the daughter of JFK's speechwriter, Ted Sorensen, who wrote, you know, the inaugural address. So that'll be really interesting. We have various historians across the country, including the incredible civil rights historian Claymore Carson and at Stanford University, David M. Kennedy, Frederick Logevall from Harvard University. We have quite a huge ensemble, so it'll be really cool meeting each and every one of these people and seeing what they bring, because each of them will bring something unique.
How about celebrities, or do we want to talk about that? Or
no.
Okay.
We will wait. We will wait.
Well, there's some cool people you might recognize. Yeah, like I said, today is somewhere around, it's March 4th.
March 4th, yeah. So we have actually a week from tomorrow is when we leave Indiana for...
So we're going to be picking up a big rental car. I think I'll put all this pre-production stuff in one little vlog.
Yeah.
And then, and then we set out in our big-ass truck and start driving. But
it's like, I mean, I always use the example of Frodo and Sam leaving the Shire, going on this journey to
I've never been this far away
to
from
Mordor.
Home
Yeah, and so we are definitely heading not far from home, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's going to conclude our interview with Ashton for part 1. Now that you know what we're even doing.
Well, let me just say, I'm very excited to be working with this chap because we've been friends for the longest time and we've made multiple shorts together, and there's very few people I respect and admire more than this guy. So we are going to be having some fun on this trip.
Oh.
Thank you.